Hi, I'm Yusuf Saber. Welcome to Applied Kotlin for Advanced Android Application Development by Pact Publishing. I am your author, and I've worked over 5 years as a professional Android engineer. I've worked at many companies, including a large number of startups, some mid-sized companies, and some large companies as well, all for Android application development. My apps that I've worked on have totaled over 50 million downloads, and I hold a master's degree in software engineering from Ryerson University. Course overview. What we'll learn in this course, in the first section, we'll talk about next-gen functions. Here, we'll go over higher order functions are, and we'll talk about lambdas so that you can be comfortable with using them in your Kotlin code. In section 2, we'll talk about interfaces and how they differentiate from interfaces in Java, and we'll talk about some of the cool things you can do with interfaces in Kotlin. In section 3, we talk about salient features in Kotlin, and this section is really the meat of the course because we talk about very heavy topics such as delegation, null safety, and even operator overload, which some of these didn't even exist in Java. So you're in for quite a ride in section 3. In section 4, exploring Anko and publishing app on Google Play, we talk about a library called Anko, which is an extension of the Kotlin programming language, and it's basically designed to make development on Android specifically much simpler. So Kotlin has a lot of useful features that extends to the entire Kotlin language, whether you're doing it for web or for Android. But then Anko goes a step further and implements very large set of useful features specifically for Android. And finally, at the end of this section, we will publish our app to Google Play. Now let's talk about a few prerequisites. This is not a beginner Kotlin course. You should have some experience with Kotlin before you start this course because we're not going to actually talk about the base syntax of variables and functions and things like that. You should already be familiar with those. And of course, we're using Android Studio for our development, so you should have some experience with that. You should have some experience with Android development using Kotlin. So if you have Kotlin experience with some other languages, it would help to just brush up a little bit for Kotlin on Android development. And finally, you should have a little bit of experience with writing layouts in XML. We won't be delving deep into XML in this course, but Anko has a lot of helper methods that involve UI, so it would be helpful to know what's going on when we look at some XML screens. Some things to get excited about when getting advanced with Kotlin. So the first thing to know is Kotlin is powerful. You already know this since you have some experience with Kotlin. Kotlin does so much very efficiently with very little code, and it's very intuitive. So when you think something is going to work by typing in something, most of the time it works. Anko is incredible. As I mentioned, Kotlin does a lot for the base languages, so across platforms, across Android and web. But Anko takes that same mentality and plugs just into Android. So once we delve into it, you'll see how incredible Anko is. And finally, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Kotlin is just so much fun to work with. Thanks.